Good morning. First of all, my sincere thanks to Father Victor, the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Christo, the Dean, and Nisha ma'am, and all the people in the organizing committee for inviting me to be part of this wonderful event. And I'm actually delighted to see so many people in front of me. I feel almost like a politician. I think I'm sure there will be interesting conversations which will happen during the day, which will articulate the importance of sustainability for a country like us. I mean, by nature, we are thrifty people, right? We value things. We don't throw them away easily. Fundamentally, we believe that we can reuse and reuse. I think the economy requires these themes to move into the next level of growth. And coming from the industry, I thought it's important for me to possibly share with you a perspective about plastic circularity and put to rest some of the misconceptions that a lot of us carry for a variety of reasons. I think that's what I will spend about 10 minutes of my time. Also share with you some of the things which we do as an organization, and I'm sure there are my colleagues in other organizations who are doing equally well or even better. Now, interestingly, plastic as a material came into existence something like about 100 plus years. I think 1917 is when the first patent for PVC was given in Germany. And it has been a phenomenal journey after that, because 1982 was a time when the first artificial heart made out of polyurethane was put into a human being and continued to function effectively. So it's come really a long way. What are the two critical parameters of plastic? Benefits of plastic: durability and the entire versatility, because we must always remember in life there is a trade-off, right? As students, you can choose to play or you can choose to study. Now, what you do defines the course of what happens later. Correct? There's a trade-off. Or there's a balance which one can achieve. So this was actually a trade-off against natural materials, and that is why it became so much more popular, cost-effective, and also non-corrosive. Right from the time you wake up in the morning, the toothbrush, the bristles, the nylon bristles or the handle, to the time when you go to bed and put an alarm on your mobile phone, plastic is all pervasive in our lives. However, one problem that we have is that, when you talk about metals, do you identify everything as metal? Do you treat iron and gold as similar? I'm sure there are a lot of girls sitting out here. Maybe your generation is not as obsessed as my generation of women about buying gold jewelry, but I'm sure you value that differently, right? However, in the terms of plastic, unfortunately, which is graded differently based on its versatility, durability, and recyclability, we call everything as plastic, which is actually wrong. That's the first perspective I thought I should put to rest. The last two you find on the left hand side. I don't need to speak. Sorry for the. Sorry. Okay. You can see, why is it showing? I'm sure you can see now that there is an aspect which is different with certain kinds of plastics with the other kind of plastic you see on the left side. And we need to start realizing as a group of consumers, industry has always recognized this, but I think consumers lack this perspective that different kinds of plastic are different. Now, when you think of plastic, the first thing that comes to our mind is packaging. When you think about plastic in a disparaging manner, what comes to mind is that everything seems to be packed in plastic today. But I think we need to understand that of the total plastic usage in India, which is relevant to us, just 36% is actually plastic packaging. And is that doing anything to the products? Look at it, 2 grams of plastic extends a shelf life by 11 days. But if we were allowing that food to go waste, it's almost 5 times more CO2 that gets released into the atmosphere. Again, a trade-off. Okay, I think we need to have this perspective right. Because end of the day, what we are talking about is the CO2 impact in terms of our environment. I come from a company, I work for a company called Bisleri, one of the most recognizable brands in the country. Over the last 50 years we've been here, providing safe, pure mineral water to the consumers. Now, another question I'm sure will come to your mind is mineral water a necessity or a convenience? You know, even a lot of people actually started putting mineral water bottles picture along with single-use plastic. I thought my one slide behind clarified that aspect. PET is not a single-use plastic. It is an endlessly recyclable plastic, and that is what mineral water bottles are made of. But come back to the question as to why do you find mineral water bottles across the country when you travel? It's not just an industry reason, because we would like to sell more water, but doesn't mean that the consumer is interested in buying. So there is a consumer reason for this. The fact that only 47% of houses in urban India has a pipe connection coming to their house. And you can see that out of about 780 districts in the country, 460 of them, and some states completely, have underground, that's how the groundwater contaminated by a variety of harmful chemicals and minerals. So you require healthy water for people to drink. And then the question that comes to mind is, that solution, that water needs to be affordable for the general population, because it is a large requirement, as you can see on the side. Now, as a company, as an organization selling water, I am completely neutral to packaging. Okay, we are not interested in selling plastic. So don't take me as a messiah for plastic industry. No, I am completely neutral. But when I evaluate a material which I can put my product in, either a water or any other beverage, I look at these 5 things. Safety, there should not be any physical or chemical interactions with the product inside. It has to be functionally equivalent or superior to what I have today. It has to be cost effective. I'm sure you understood that from the earlier slide. And it has to be scalable. You know, people keep coming to me and saying, sir, we have got this fancy bamboo bottle. Okay, apparently sustainable. No, first of all, it's not sustainable, because you're going to destroy all the bamboo forests. Secondly, it's not scalable. I mean, you have seen the requirement. Almost this huge population of India requires mineral water. And unless your idea is scalable for my industry, I don't think it's relevant. And the last line is actually more important, because when I look at any alternative, what I look at is, what is the final carbon footprint? Not just from the product that you have in your hand versus the further recyclability. And maybe this will, okay, before I get into that, one of the most favorite ones doing in the WhatsApp University is about safety of PET. You keep it in sun, okay, you are likely to have a lot of problems, etc. PET incidentally has been one of the most studied plastics around the world, certified by regulatory authorities across continents, and some of them are very, very stringent. And one of the things which we did as a people who are using PET, we are also members of the PACE, which is an association of people who are using plastics in India. We commissioned a study with CFTRI of Mysore, and that was a 2-year study to find out if there are any leaching of chemicals which is happening from plastic into the contents, and are the harmful chemicals detectable above a certain threshold level which is acceptable? Are there kind of endocrine disturbances which can happen on account of products packed in PET packaging? It had conclusively said no, and it's not a small study, it's a very extensive study. You can see that on the screen. Now on carbon footprint, actually what people fail to recognize is that a lot of alternatives seem apparently interesting. Aluminum cans, for example. You can look at an aluminum can which is actually 3x more in terms of solid waste, energy to create. People forget that bauxite is mined, transported, hot processed, again cold processed to bang into sheets, made into aluminum cans. If you have to reprocess it again a huge amount of heat is required. PET melts at 250 degrees. Glass melts at about 1400 degrees. So, look at people tell us about glass. That's the ideal solution for sustainability. In the United States, 12 million tons of glass is generated every year. And you'll be surprised to know 36% is the recycling that happens for that glass. What happens to the rest of it? Going into landfills, lying there, it will take a few hundred years to possibly disintegrate. So irrespective of the recyclability, if your ecosystem is not conducive to reprocessing that in a cost-effective manner, it just doesn't work. So we are equally cognizant of this. At this point of time, we see that PET or plastic seems to be a safe, which I mentioned earlier, and a low carbon footprint alternative for packaging for the industry. Not just our industry, I have mentioned over there Lego, the people who provide play materials for kids. They were looking at alternatives to plastic which are safe and economical. Okay, a non, crude oil based product which they can create. It was almost a 5 to 7 year search. They have given up that initiative, or most of that initiative, because they couldn't find that economical nor value added. I think it's important to have this perspective. However, it's not all bells and whistles for plastic. This is what you see in front of us. Tons of plastic lying all around. But tell me, is the plastic to blame for this, or the people who are to be blamed for this? I think that's an important question for us to ask ourselves. Why? We generate around 26,000 tons of plastic in the country. But in India, you've got this garbage pickers, the poor people who go to pick up this, sort it out. It is collected, recycled to an extent of 60% as per the statement of the minister in the Rajya Sabha. Plastic recycling, is it better in India versus the rest of the world? You can see that the consumption in the United States, the plastic consumption is 10 times more per capita than India. And the recycling is something like about 20-24%. In India, it's about 60% you saw. And for PET, it is about 90%. In fact, 92% is the ministry's report tabled in the Lok Sabha. Then that brings us to a question. as far as we are looking at plastic circularity, can India become actually the world leaders? We are already at 60%, and demonstrate to the world that yes, we are, go back to the first thing I quoted, we are a thrifty population, correct? We have that mindset of saving. We have that mindset of being very judicious about what we do in terms of resources. Can we become the leaders in recycling? And rather, I would say upcycling. Because to me, putting plastic back into bitumen, into the road is the worst form that you can continue to do. If you can convert that plastic into higher value-added stuff, which I'll speak about a little later, that is the way to kind of enhance the durability. So you're able to recycle and repurpose plastic. That is when the true leadership will happen in the global arena. I think the starting point for this possibly is sustainable consumption and behavior change. All of us know this, but interestingly, I must share with you a personal story, two personal stories maybe. Once we were traveling to Nainital, I used to operate out of Delhi in those days, in a different organization. So it was a family trip to Nainital. On the way back, me and wife were sitting in front and our younger son was in the front. So I'd opened a packet of chips, had it, and down the window, threw it outside. My son told the driver, Ashok, stop. He got out of the car and stood like this. Must have been about 10, 12 years at that time. So he said, Dad, please go and pick up that. I said, listen, what shit? Kajra is better inside the car or outside the car? So he said, you created the kachra in the car, then you are accountable for taking it home. Now, obviously, you can imagine a father's reaction, The kid is going to teach the father. So obviously, I got a little while. Then it struck me, my God, I am supposed to be teaching him. He is telling me. So I shamelessly went, picked it up, took it all the way back to Delhi and put it in the garbage bin at home. It's a very humbling experience, but I think that's possibly the last time I had consciously littered. The second thing was a Bangalore story. I lived in Bangalore in the 90s. I used to work here. The first day in Bangalore, and we had lived in Chennai before that. I'm not discouraging to any Chennaites sitting here, including Justina. We used to find that the garbage is generally bundled in the morning and, sent like something, like a missile to the nearest available empty space. But here when I came, I saw that there was a garbage bin and people were actually going to the bin and putting it inside. And there was not one bag outside the round bin. So I went home, called my wife, I think you must come and see this. So I showed my wife, I think this is dramatic, this is what Bangalore appears to be. I think they come to the right town. So great stuff, I hope that it's keeping up in Bangalore now. I think it was a very responsible thing because I saw a woman with a kid coming and the woman was making the kid lean and put it into that round bin over there. So a lot of it I think is intentional. But I think the solution for this possibly is in our mindset. We keep newspapers, right? All of us keep newspaper at home, or your parents. Do you know that it just gives you 8 rupees per kilo? Or maybe in Bombay about 7 rupees 50 paisa. But a PET gives you 15 rupees per kilo. And why are we throwing it out? So I think the first instance is we are not realizing the value of this product. That even to the kabadi wala, I can give it for 15 rupees, and that is an interesting thing. So it requires a behavior change, right? Equally, I think people fail to understand that this is a huge industry in terms of recycling. I don't think people have this perspective. One day I was coming to Hyderabad and there was a gentleman who was sitting next to me. So he appeared very wealthy, and I was asking him many years back, 10, 15, 12 years back. So I asked him, what do you do? So he said, I collect the garbage of the city. So I said, oh, that's interesting. And he said it as a matter of fact, you know. So I said, what all goes into that? So then he started describing the infrastructure, the people, the whole network, and how much money to be earned in sorting out this garbage, the electronic waste and all that stuff. I said, wow, that's very interesting, because his EBITDA working, I'm sure the London graduates here, was actually 4% better than mine at that point in time. And I was working in a good company. So it's a big industry. You can see those numbers. It's a $10.2 billion industry. So if there are entrepreneurs sitting out here, this is one great idea. There is huge amount of money to be made from waste, and we are at an inflection point, okay, where the infrastructure is actually coming. However, I think one challenge we have, you can see that every state in the country is getting prosperous, right? And with prosperity, you have a lot of plastic waste which gets generated. So the waste generation is by and large equally distributed across the country in terms of consumption centers. But 82% of the recyclers are only in 7 states. So in a state like Orissa, in a state like Chhattisgarh, in a state like Madhya Pradesh, in a state like Kerala, there are no recyclers today. I'm talking about the value added repurposing recyclers, not the guys who convert it into bitumen and put it into the road. No. The value added recycling, which will add value to the product and the industry, is constrained in these 7 states. So what happens is, why should I spend, a Maharashtra recycler will think, why should I spend 15 rupees more transporting the stuff from Kerala when I can get it here in Maharashtra, possibly cheaper? Because at the end of the day, the economics of industry works on profitability. So this is something we've been requesting the Ministry of Environment, the CPCB and various government bodies to set up. It requires their help in terms of subsidizing infrastructure, subsidizing space for people who are willing to kind of set up recycling. You know, there was a time when there used to be an excise rebate for setting up industries in back of beyond areas. And that's how townships like Badi and Pantnagar, and if you look at even Tejpur and all developed. I think it's time for India to look at subsidizing plastic industry infrastructure and facilities. But upcycling is easier said than done. It requires disruptive innovation. You can see what's the conversion rate. Our uniforms in Bisleri are made from PET bottles. I think about 36 to 38 bottles will make one t-shirt, one full sleeve shirt. There's an upcycling possibility on that. And it's also important that this entire recycling process is made interesting. Okay, it is not a low-grade activity. It's actually a high value-added activity. You can see the President of India there. And it's also trendy when top designers in the country starts adopting recycled plastic materials for creating fashionable clothes. And real value-added repurposing gets prime attention. That's my college mate standing next to the Prime Minister, Shankar from Erode. He had created that jacket which Prime Minister wore in Parliament. You can see the upcycling possibility. Look at it, 15 rupees per kilo on PET gets so maybe about 80, 100 bucks or 150 rupees gets converted into a t-shirt which is about anything upwards of 900 rupees, and then branding defines whether it is 2000 or 10,000. Also, as an organization, as a country, I think let's not just do navel gazing, let's also look outside. What are the best global practices? One thing is to look at the really developed countries. There's a deposit system in Norway and Germany for plastic bottles. So you pay €1 plus 10 cents. You get a bottle to drink. You put it back and you get your €1 back. So it creates an accountability, because by locking your capital, there is a need for you to go and recover it. Okay? It is like in some airports you have those trolleys you have to put a coin inside only, then you can release the trolley. The objective is for you to put it back and not discard it in public spaces. Okay, so it's not really about the value of the coin. The similar is what they're doing in these advanced countries. Japan, for example, they said, listen, in one packaging you can have only one kind of material. So if it's PET, then the cap has to be PET, body PET, and the label PET. So it can just be chucked in for reprocessing. Because if you have an HDPE cap, a polypropylene label, and then PET, this thing, you have to separate out these before recycling process, which makes it more difficult. But equally interesting, I used to look after Bangladesh at one point in time, apart from my India role. What shocked me was it's a completely non-vegetarian country, okay? Irrespective of the religion, everybody has to buy fish in the morning. And I said, there is no plastic bag. And that is about 10 years back. And I believe even 10 years earlier they had implemented this. They said no plastic bag in Bangladesh. Did people adapt? Definitely adapt. They said we will use our jute bags or cloth bags. We will put a steel vessel to buy our fish and meat. So anything which is going to leak, it created that reuse concept. Last before year, I was in Sri Lanka and we were in one of those nice, beautiful beaches. And the beaches were absolutely clean. And Sri Lanka is no different a country in terms of population and perspective as compared to us. So I asked the shack guy, I'm super impressed with your beach. It's so beautiful and clean. So he said, sir, I have a problem. It is my accountability to keep my front clean. So every half an hour I have to send my chotu to pick up all the garbage which is lying around the beach. Government creates that accountability. Okay, so it falls into place. Now, let's also look at the evolution of the regulatory landscape. The plastic management rules which government got in 2016, the extended producer responsibility making people like us accountable, policy of 2022, single-use plastics happened in 22. Now there's a new mandate that 10% reuse of packing greater than 900 ml. I will have to actually start from 25-26. So even plastic as a material, even for the same purpose to be reused. What is more interesting is what is declared in last August under the National Green Credits, where individuals and corporates and others and collectives, cooperative collectives are going to be rewarded by the government for environmental friendly activity. It includes water conservation, plastic management, waste management and everything. So if you do good to environment, you get credit points which you can then trade like carbon credits. And that mechanism is going to come into place. And as we speak, we have created something on water credits as an organization, and we are tabling it with the Ministry of Jal Shakti. So that will be an interesting thing. We have defined how the credit possibly could be given to different industries based on the percolation of water and the availability of monsoon rainfall and stuff like that. Different subject altogether. Interestingly, there is something else also happening. Started in 2022. United Nations Environmental Agency, which is headquartered in Kenya, has been spearheading an international regulatory action in terms of defining what the right word for that? One second, ILBI. Internationally legally binding instrument, where every country can generate only so or use only so much of primary plastic. They need to recycle so much of primary plastic. And 170 countries have participated in November meeting. The next one is scheduled in March or April. And the final draft is going to come out in September, which means even as a country, India, you can only import so much of plastic, you can only produce so much of primary plastic, and you have an accountability for recycling at a country level. And that's going to be a global agreement. But having said, it also requires design innovations like I spoke earlier, recycled PET facilities, optimizing the material cost, in terms of how the crude is converted, etc. Now, that brings me to our story. I'm sure as an industry, as a company, do we have an accountability? Definitely yes. I think our chairman passionately believes that used plastic is valuable. We were one of the first companies to import a plastic recycling machine from Japan, and it is still there in our compound because he believed that we can recycle, and this is 1992, which is a good 30 years before anyone spoke about plastic recycling in the country. And like I said, our uniforms are from PET, recycled to PET, and we're actively working, collecting waste and then creating value out of it. I think the introducer spoke about this. You know, when the rule came that 70% of plastic need to be recycled, that's about 3 years back. I told my team, no. I think, why don't we try for 100% recycling? So they said, बहुत मुश्किल है. It won't happen. I said, try it. Let's aim for 100 and see where we land. And you won't be surprised. The first year was 102, 104, and as we speak now, it's 107% of the plastic. It means for every 100 kilo I put in, we're enabling recycling of 107 kilos. Similarly, for water, we said water is something which we need to replenish. We are drawing water. How good is our conversion? A domestic RO converts 60% of the water into finished product, 40% goes down your drain. We convert upwards of 90%. All the factories, we have got rainwater harvesting. We build check dams, and the latest one is we have restored a reservoir in Leh. It's a beautiful picture also because of the landscape. 108% of what we extract, we put it back into the ground. And that's what we have done. We look at CO2 savings on a monthly level. There's somebody accountable for this. It's actually 73% higher than last year in terms of our CO2 savings, which combine plastic savings, energy saving, transportation savings. And as we speak, we're actually moving into electric delivery vehicles, which are going to be less polluting in the metro cities. But I think the manufacturers are still in the process of working that out. So we're working very closely with at least 3 of the largest companies to ensure. I'm also a big trucker in the country because we manage a lot of trucks to reach the water to you people. We believe that, starting with that first slide, 80% of littering is intentional. We believe that it has to start there. That one behavior change, we educate people to sort and clean. When the food comes to you from Zomato, after you have taken it out and put it into your plate, wash it and keep it on the side. If you don't require that 15 rupees, give it to your housekeeping guy. Let him accumulate it. Bisleri has got a program called Bottles for Change, which you can see on the screen. You can download the app, press a button, inform I want a pickup. We will arrange a pickup either from the local agent or our own trucks will come and pick it up. And we don't allow this to go into a municipal truck or a dump yard. It will go straight to recycling. So everybody gets better money in the bargain. The proceeds of this actually go to benefit the rag pickers. We have, in many of the cities, we have evening schools for them, for their kids to be educated. So it is nothing to do, it's not a profit-making parallel business for Bisleri. It is for social good. This is how it works. So it goes from the app to finally the finished product. And as we speak, on 22nd in Ayodhya, we have got the Ayodhya municipality's permission to ensure that all bins are placed from 20 kilometers into Ayodhya from both sides in the road, and in the premises there will be bins of Bisleri and Bottles for Change. Trucks will be going around supplementing the efforts by Ayodhya municipality to pick up any plastic waste and not allow it to go to the landfill and spoil that pristine environment government is trying to create. Thank you. So how do we do it? There are 2 colleagues of mine sitting here who belong to the Bottles for Change team. We go and talk to the municipalities, get the permission, because I can't go to a housing society saying that Bisleri truck will come. They will say, who the hell are you? So I need a permission from the municipality saying Bisleri is authorized to collect this stuff. So we work with about Bombay, Delhi, Noida, Gurgaon, Ahmedabad, Chennai, Bangalore we just started recently, Hyderabad and Chandigarh now. Okay, and moving into Pune this month. We also work with a lot of corporates, 800 plus corporates, some of the names you can see, educational institutions, some of the top hotels and restaurants where we say when your plastic is accumulated to a level, inform us, we will pick it up. And the footprint in educational institutions, we would like to do this in St. Joseph's. You know why I chose to accept this invitation? So far the journey on Bottles for Change has been that we go and meet the dean, the principal and the academia and then percolate it downwards. I thought this is a great opportunity for me to come and talk to you guys who can then tell your academia and the principal and the dean that we want Bottles for Change in our institution. So it's a nice marketing in that way. I thought let me try this strategy. These are some of the institutions we are already present across the country. You can see some of the biggest ones are there. Not only this, we are also training rural entrepreneurs for getting into garbage collection or plastic recycling. This is work with TERI, the Energy Research Institute in Delhi, where we are training. We just trained the first batch now in rural, so they will then set up the recycling facilities in the rural markets, and that's the first batch going. I have a small 1-minute clip before I conclude, which possibly captures what we do as an organization. Do we have an audio? Can I have the audio pin connected here? Don't have an audio pin. Okay. See the visuals, doesn't matter. Put the mic. Okay, just see the visuals, doesn't matter. Thank you. And that's our Bangalore factory in Bisleri. So, I think I've taken a little more time, sorry for that. I think sustainability calls for a collective effort from consumers where we need to moderate consumption. Wherever you don't require plastic packaging, I think we should be comfortable about reusing our stuff. And there's a behavioral change which is required to dispose responsibly. Trade and establishments like that shack in Unawatuna be accountable for disposal of consumption in their premises. Industry, we need to work at cost efficiency, recyclability and things like this, which is social interventions. And government obviously need to invest in circularity infrastructure, enforce regulations and we need to catch them young. My son taught me a story, and I think it's important that all of us young guys teach our families the story of recycling and responsible consumption. Thank you.